This Middle Eastern airline has anti-missile systems installed on all their aircraft. They also have undercover agents on board every single flight. As opposed to most of their neighbors in the region, they rely almost solely on point-to-point traffic rather than connections. That is not the only thing that makes this airline different though. They are also rather unknown in the premium aviation world since they rarely, if ever, sell cheap tickets. Well, today, I found a way to try them. After many years of waiting, I finally got to fly the flag carrier of Israel. Today, we are trying the world's safest airline, El Al, on a signature flight from Tel Aviv to London Heathrow. After a week spent visiting Israel and areas of Palestine, it was time to head back to Europe and enjoy the Swedish summer. Trying a new airline is always an exciting experience, so let's please focus on the aviation aspect of this video because I'm not here to address or comment on the political situation in the region. This political situation is, of course, what limits Israel's flag carrier El Al in many ways. The airline historically couldn't use any Arab airspace besides on flights to Dubai, which obviously made flying to most parts of Asia and Africa pretty difficult. Besides, passengers flying into Tel Aviv require special screening similar to passengers going to the US, which significantly limits their ability to offer connections. As a consequence, the airline focuses on transporting passengers to and from Israel, primarily to countries with large Jewish populations like the US, UK, France, and other European nations, or popular vacation spots with Israelis like Thailand and the Seychelles. My relatively short travel day started at Ben Gurion International Airport where travel most certainly has resumed. There was a small interrogation prior to being allowed into the check-in line, and thankfully the business class line was a lot shorter than the regular one. So I took the exclusive little path to the right to the fancy King David counters. Yes. Thankfully, checking in was a breeze, unlike what came after, security. There were no priority lines here, so we were brought back down to earth with an hour-long wait to get to the gate area. This airport is really unlike any other airport in the world. It feels more like a Southeast Asian discount mall than an airport terminal, which is kind of a fun change. Naturally, El Al has a lounge, the King David Lounge, which I was excited to check out. I was shocked, rather stupidly perhaps, that the lounge was full to the brim. I really don't see the purpose of lounges if they're more crowded than the terminal. Just like most buffets in Israel, the buffet here was impressively healthy and pretty decent. We also found some empty seats on the top floor. Would you look at that? Sadly, we couldn't spend long here given our long wait at security, so we headed to the gate where our El Al 787-8 was awaiting. This is one of 4 787-8s in El Al's fleet, and they are all fitted with 20 business class seats in a 1-2-1 configuration. These are the same exact seats as United Polaris and alternate between being closer to the aisle or the windows. In the center, there are a few honeymoon seats allowing couples to sit all cuddled up together, but let's be real, you can cuddle on the ground. Window seats are where it's at on planes. There are only 4 seats that are truly ideal in this whole configuration, and those are in the even numbered rows by the windows since they offer the most privacy. There's also a pretty large premium economy cabin, and behind that, regular economy in a 333 configuration. Ready to hop on board? Our flight to London was almost entirely full, so the gate area was busy. We awkwardly passed by to get to the priority queue and headed on board to seat 4A for me and 5A for Oscar. To me, this cabin looks incredibly sleek with the dark wood colored finishes, and as you can see, the seat looks pretty darn cozy. I prefer these finishes to United Polaris because this gives off a classier vibe. The difference in privacy between the even and odd numbered rows is pretty astonishing, given that Oscar was basically sitting in the aisle. Meanwhile, I couldn't see any other passengers from my seat. You're also really close to the window, which makes it easy to look out and enjoy the view through the massive Dreamliner windows. Now, looking around my seat, there is plenty of storage. Firstly, there's this surface, but for more privacy, you have a locker which contains your headphones, water bottle, and a mirror. Quick question, does anyone actually use the mirrors at their seat? Besides that, there's another small storage compartment. You also have a remote, a USB port, and your headphone jack here. Below that are the seat controls, and below that, an armrest. I have no idea why you need a remote because you're sitting right up close to your screen here. It pops out so you can watch it without an angle, and oh boy, the selection was far better than I'd expected. There were 200 plus movies and a huge variety of shows. I mean, look at how much Bob's Burgers they have. You can watch them with these noise-canceling headphones, which are fine, but don't expect them to transport you to a world of silence and bliss, far away from screaming babies and air rage incidents. Under the video monitor, you'll find your tray table, which pops out and adjusts to let you out even if you're using it, which is much appreciated. You know what else is appreciated? Some pre-departure orange juice, which was one of 3 choices along with mimosas and kava. Is this a bachelorette party plane or what? During this time, the purser briefly welcomed each passenger on board, which is always a nice touch. Even though I was heading on a flagship route to London, the busiest route out of Tel Aviv is to Istanbul, with nearly 100 weekly flights. I've been transiting in Istanbul more this year than ever before, and given the lack of English speakers there, I thought it might be useful to learn some Turkish. I turned to Babbel, one of the top language learning apps, to teach me. As today's video sponsor, Babbel takes away the time commitment from learning a language with lessons that are just 10 minutes long. Their science-proven technology can teach you a new language in as little as 21 days, which is pretty cool since they have a 20-day money-back guarantee. Lütfen, please. Lütfen. I personally love that they use speech recognition to improve your pronunciation and accent. Obviously, I have no need for Turkish grammar or academic language. I just need practical everyday phrases, and that is precisely what Babbel is teaching me. Which language would you learn with Babbel? Get started with 60% off by clicking the link at the top of the description. The 787-8 is such a fun mini widebody, so taking off is always a treat. Now, in case you haven't already subscribed, you may want to click that button now. That's because I'm running a giveaway for my subscribers and Instagram followers for a free Qatar Airways business class flight. That's right, a free flight in the world's best business class is up for grabs. Just enter at the link in the description. So, do you want a nap, or do you want to work, or do you want to pee? Well, you're invited. Welcome to the lavatory. Pretty standard, nothing to really see here. Let's leave and find the person who left the toilet seat up. Back at 4A, I converted my seat into a fully flat bed, and let me tell you guys, I was amazed. The seat was comfy, yeah, but I hadn't noticed how soft it was until I turned it into a bed, and oh my god, this isn't the widest, it isn't the longest, but by golly, it may be the softest business class bed I can remember. What a comfortable place with enough room for the feet and once again, plenty of privacy. Sadly, the bedding, especially this plastic pillow cover, yikes, was not amazing. Then again, I wasn't flying for 13 hours here. Tel Aviv to London is barely 5 hours, so I can barely complain about that. Another concern for sleep could be the cabin temperature, and although I committed the cardinal sin in the eyes of many snooty flyers and wore shorts, I was never too cold or too hot despite the lack of air vents. Speaking of cold and hot, the meal. Smooth transition, hey? El Al has quite a fun menu in my opinion. I mean, salmon chardonnay isn't a dish I'm familiar with, but again, I'm sure it's a huge hit at bachelorette parties. The dessert sounds delicious too. As always, I pre-ordered a vegan meal, and given how vegan-friendly Israel is, I had high expectations. For the first time in what feels like ages, I was served a special meal in business class that didn't suck. In fact, it was really nice. There was the main dish, a tofu curry, along with this unique and surprisingly delicious sesame oil, cucumber, date, and pecan salad. There was also an enormous hummus plate, and no shade to any of the places I ate at during my trip, but this was the best hummus I had in Israel. I ate it with a pretzel roll, as one does. I'll acknowledge that everything was served on one tray, which isn't a very luxurious way of presenting it, but of course the taste of the food is more important than the presentation. Speaking of presentation, here's the amenity kit. It looks like something you'd get for free at a public swimming pool during an event. That's to say, not especially fancy, but the contents were excellent. Tissues are such an underrated amenity, and so are Halloween socks in early summer. Speaking of holidays, if you're not on holiday, there is onboard Wi-Fi so you can stay productive. El Al charges about $20 for a full flight unlimited pass, and what surprises me is that they encourage you to stream music and videos on it, something you rarely see airlines suggest. Not a bad price, but not revolutionary either. I worked for the rest of the flight, and before I knew it, we were approaching London. This is a good chance to quickly talk about the onboard service. If you've been to Israel or you've read about their culture, you'll know that they are unbelievably direct. This doesn't always translate into the best service, so with that in mind, the crew was quite friendly. The experience wasn't especially polished or luxurious, but they performed their jobs with a smile and gladly took care of any requests. Overall, that element of the flight was pretty average. In fact, I'd say El Al overall is pretty average, which makes sense for them given that they largely compete against the US carriers, British Airways, Air France, Lufthansa, Turkish Airlines, and of course, Ryanair. Only Turkish Airlines and Gulf Air offer a better product in business class to Israel in my opinion. So what is El Al's incentive to provide anything better? Would I fly El Al again? Absolutely. Would I seek them out? Definitely not. So El Al passes the test without leaving much of an impression, good or bad. With that, the real question is, how did I pay for the elusive El Al? Through Qantas of all airlines. Qantas lets you redeem points on all El Al routes, although the longer the flight, the worse the value in this case. Tel Aviv to London happened to be at a relatively good one-way price. It wasn't cheap, but not a bad deal for a lie-flat seat. You can earn Qantas points in the US through American Express, which offers instant transfers, and right now, you can get an incredible 60,000 point sign-up bonus on the American Express Gold Card. Make sure you check that out if you're in the US, or take my quiz to find the best credit card for you. With that, thanks so much for watching, and until I see you next time, my friends, fly safe.